late when her talents emerged. She came into public view at a time when, across the Caribbean region, there had been widespread unrest and when, increasingly, colonial assumptions were being questioned. In January 1939, Norman Manley, one of the leaders of Jamaica's national movement, said, "We can take everything that English education has to offer us, but ultimately, we must reject the domination of her influence because we are not English, nor should we ever want to be. Instead, we must dig deep into our own consciousness and accept and reject only those things of which we, from our superior knowledge of our own cultural needs, must be the best judges." It takes political action to steer a country into a state of national consciousness, and the labor upheavals of the past year have resulted in the birth of organized national political life. This political awakening goes hand in hand with cultural growth, and this is the change that we are seeing taking place. Around us and before our very eyes are the stirrings of the first shoots of a deeply felt national, artistic, and intellectual life. Thanks to Professor Mervyn Morris, who is with us this afternoon, for including the quotation from the Right Excellent Norman Washington Manley in his 2014 publication, Miss Louise Bennett and Jamaican Culture. We do know that Professor Mervyn Morris worked very closely with Miss Lou. Well, see it here now. Today we gather right here in our yard, and we gather abroad, because no found in the diaspora tune in to what are going right here so now. As we just celebrate Miss Lou's memory and her contribution through this publication, 100 plus voices for Miss Lou. I am Faye Ellington, in Jamaica, my name Faye. We come from Clarendon, Smithville, them would call it, Smithville, in the hills of Clarendon. And it is indeed my honor, privilege, and pleasure to be the master of ceremonies for this very important book launch. Let me acknowledge some very important people, both in our gathering and online, and who've made some important contributions and will do so throughout the afternoon. Former Prime Minister, the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson, statesman in residence at the University of the West Indies, Mona, the P.J. Patterson Center for Africa Caribbean Advocacy, board member, the University of the West Indies Press, Professor Fonso Ayegina, editor of the 100 plus voices for Miss Lou, Professor Opal Palmer Adisa. The birthing process has come now to fruition. Contributors to the publication, many of you are watching online and some of you are here in the multipurpose room, which is in the main library at the University of the West Indies, Mona. Reviewers, let me acknowledge you from the Institute of Caribbean Studies and Reggae Studies Unit, Dr. Candia Mitchell-Hall, and playwright, producer, director, and PhD candidate in the Institute of Cultural Studies, Miss Dalia Harris. And might I just say, radio and television, that's secondary, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, in this multifunction room at the main library at the University of the West Indies, we are indeed creating a historic moment. We are here for the launch of this book. It should have come a few years ago, a couple of years ago. And then came COVID, and that put us back. All kinds of things happened, but we are here today because what? We say we little bit, but we tell our. Me say that we are going to make sure say it happen, as Miss Lou made so sure that so many important things happened, like giving respectability to our language. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start off with persons who are going to speak this afternoon, some in the room and some outside of the room. Please allow me to acknowledge and welcome the presentation of Percival Noel James Patterson, Jamaican, Caribbean, and international statesman who has committed his life to achieving social and economic progress for the people of Jamaica, the Caribbean, and of course the African diaspora. He has selflessly applied his sharp intellect, legal training, vast political experience, keen global insight, and eminent international stature to this cause for more than 6 decades. Following his retirement from public office, Mr. Patterson has remained actively engaged in national, regional, and global affairs. Among other things, he's chairman of the International Advisory Board of the Caribbean Research and Policy Center, based in Washington, D.C., and is CARICOM Special Representative on Haiti. P.J. Patterson's numerous honors include Jamaica's Order of the Nation, the Commonwealth titles of Privy Council and Queen's Counsel, and CARICOM's Order of the Caribbean Community. Might I hand you over now to former Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Mr. P.J. Patterson.
This important occasion is much more than a fitting coincidence. Indeed, it marks a significant milestone that we are able to participate today in the launch of this splendid book of poetry, tributes, interviews, and essays by Professor Palmer Deeser in the 60th year of Jamaica's independence. The Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley is a veritable architect in that entire process. At the start of our march to self-government and throughout our journey to independence, we know her work will remain a beacon to illumine our way onward in the years to come. It is no hyperbole to assert that Miss Lou belongs to the pantheon of those who pioneered the search to establish our unique identity, to build that sense of self-esteem and pride in our rich heritage, as well as to release that innate creativity in all our forms of cultural expression, which must impel our people to soar well beyond the limitations of geographical size and the horrible legacies of human exploitation. Because of her, Jamaica has become top ranking in the fields of music, sports, and even within the global vocabulary. Who else can coin words like ratted, ragging, bunanus, and buguyaga? All over the world, today, young people are trying to imitate the little Jamaican twang. This exquisite work of dedicated scholarship by Professor Palmer Deeser is both timely and highly relevant during our Diamond Jubilee. Children learn to speak in their native tongue. We were never natives of England, so our children in the streets and lanes, those in the homes of our hills and valleys, should never have been expected to speak in the Queen's English. Yet, those who used the words they learnt at birth and spoke in their homes were stigmatized at school and church. Anyone who dared to write in the vocabulary of our people was a rebel and regarded as low class and treated as an outcast. But no one had a greater mastery of English grammar and literature than Louise Bennett, but no one could deter her from using that peculiar literary genius to break down the barriers of race, class, and birth by what she wrote and how she spoke in the Jamaican dialect. That invincible courage, her artistic talents, her craft in enabling us to laugh at ourselves. As Miss Lou would say, take bad things make joke. They were all finely combined to make us realize who we truly are and inculcate in us a sense of caring, sharing, self-reliance, and resilience. Independence is with nature, born and bred in all we do, and she glad to see that government turn independent too. Professor Palmer Adisa manages in the 100 plus voices for Miss Lou to express the enduring and unique distinctions of how Miss Lou crept into the life of the people and how she echoed their voice and how they in turn repeated her voice in a symbiotic call and response mode in keeping with our African Jamaica cosmology, she writes. Working class Jamaicans loved and adored Miss Lou because she saw them and gave them a space on the national platform. She exposed to ridicule those who were pompous, arrogant, or attempted to sound an imitator of colonial masters in their patterns of social behavior and expressions. The author deserves our highest admiration for work which required both tenacity and dexterity in finding the best combination of persons who knew Miss Lou and others who benefited from her tutelage in linguistics, broadcasting, drama, pantomime. Those who have delved into the realms of literary research and the select few who have now emerged as celebrated authors in their own right. You can admire her, engage her as your model, but no one can be her carbon copy. There is only one Miss Lou, authentic and incomparable. I would dare to suggest that section 4 of this engaging book, published by the UWI Press, titled Engaging in a Quarrel with History, deserves very careful reading and our deliberate scrutiny at a time when the dialectics of today raise issues such as reparative justice, abolition of the monarchy, and movement to our own native head of state, for broader areas of constitutional reform, for the compelling urgency of social justice, gender equality, the eradication of violence, especially against our women, children, and the elderly. As we face the challenges of mobilizing our entire nation to achieve its full destiny as one people out of many, issues which were all of compelling interest to Miss Lou and addressed in her own inimitable style and fashion, we can learn much from her. Hear the words of Miss Lou. Sun a shine, but things not bright. Pot a boil, but pickle not enough. Rain a fall, but dirty tough. But let us all as a nation, as we struggle to find our own space in this turbulent and inequitable world, be reminded and encouraged by what she wrote. We defenses not defenseless, for we got half a brick, we got the broken bottle, and we cocoa stick. I hope that in this new age of technology, everyone will still devote the time to read this literary gem as we remember the revered Miss Lou for her vibrancy, for her astute intellect, for the gift of her imaginative genius, as we aspire to build this blessed land, Jamaica, land she dearly loved.
And this book that former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson endorsed with such passion and feeling, this is the woman that he was speaking about. And you can say, wherever you are in the world, whether in Jamaica, in Canada, in Nigeria, in the United Kingdom, in America, that you heard former Prime Minister Patterson recite Miss Lou's poems, part of them today. So, right, thank you so much, former Prime Minister. Let me acknowledge at this time the gentleman who heads the Institute of Jamaica, Mr. Vivian Crawford, and we know the role he has played in the country where our culture and heritage are concerned. Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks, thank you for your own contribution and for being here. And I'm going to acknowledge someone that not many people might understand why I'm doing it, but Lorna Gordon is here, and I'll tell you why I'm doing it. As a young broadcaster 51 years ago, Lorna was a producer at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, and she would also have had to come in contact with the late Louise Bennett Coverley. She was this is Lorna I'm referring to now, an exceptional producer. So we want to acknowledge you, and you are part of this project as well, Lorna, in supporting Opal. All right, so we're moving on. We have another presentation at this time, and this is coming from Funso Ayegina. Is a literary and cultural critic, a biographer, playwright, poet, and short story writer. He's a winner of the Association of Nigerian Authors Poetry Prize and the Commonwealth Writers Prize. He's published extensively on Earl Lovelace, the latest publication being Earl Lovelace 2017 in the Caribbean Biography Series, UWI Press. He wrote, directed, and produced a docu-commentary, Earl Lovelace, a writer in his place, in 2014. Fonso Ayegina was Dean, Faculty of Humanities and Education at the UWI St. Augustine, Trinidad and Tobago. He is Emeritus Professor of Literatures in English, UWI, and the series editor of the Caribbean Biography Series. He's a long-serving member of the Board of Directors of the UWI Press. This is what he has to say.
I greet those of you in the live audience and those of you who have joined us online. A very warm welcome to you. I salute each one of you with the appropriate measure of respect due to you. Many thanks for joining us. My name is Funsho Ayegina. Please permit me to single out Professor Palma Adisa, editor and curator of this delightful book, 100 Plus Voices for Miss Lou. I speak today on behalf of Professor Denzel Williams, Chair, Board of Directors of the University of the West Indies Press, publisher of 100 Plus Voices for Miss Lou. In that capacity, and in my own capacity, I would like to congratulate the staff of the UWI Press for a job well done. Opal Palma Adisa captured the importance of Miss Lou in the following assertion, and I quote, "Miss Lou paved the way for me and all dub poets who followed," end of quote. But as the range of voices and sentiments in this book readily reveals, Miss Lou paved the way for many, many more people. She instinctively empowered a whole region and its diasporas to grow the courage and the audacity to tell their stories as loudly as possible in their own voices and in their own languages. This commitment to selfhood and to place also informs the vision behind the University of the West Indies Press. When it was established 30 years ago, it was with the understanding that it would grow into a platform for the articulation, interrogation, and development of Caribbean identity/identities. Today, the excellent quality of the products from the UWI Press, both at the level of content and presentation has contributed in a significant way to the ranking of the University of the West Indies among the very top universities in the world. With over 500 active book and journal titles covering 16 academic disciplines, written by our leading scholars and researchers, our public intellectuals, and our frontline policy influencers and policymakers, nobody comes to the study of the Caribbean and its diasporas without entering into some of our titles. In the tradition of Miss Lou, the UWI Press believes in the telling of our Caribbean stories as the anchors of our universe. Like Miss Lou, the UWI Press acknowledges the sanctity of the imagination. We believe in stepping out into the world in our own clothes. We believe in the Caribbean as our home. We are, therefore, very glad to be the publisher of 100 plus voices for Miss Lou. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the University of the West Indies Press, I salute and congratulate the editor, the contributors, all of whom are stars in their own rights, and the editorial and production teams behind this massive project about Miss Lou, a phenomenal story-making and storytelling poet and activist philosopher. Finally, I urge you all to buy copies of 100 Voices for Miss Lou. While at it, check out our other titles. I assure you that you will find many more to add to your shopping carts. You will not regret your investment. I thank you very much for your attention. May the ancestors be with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you so very much. And we are going to ask you to buy copies of the book, and I will tell you where you can get them in Jamaica, and then I will tell you if you can get them outside of Jamaica, or how to make some kind of contact to get them wherever you are if you're outside of Jamaica. You know, sometimes you get a phone call and somebody asks you to do something, just the way they do it, and especially if you've had a good relationship with a place, then you just say, of course I will. Mrs. Nadine Buckland, might I just acknowledge and recognize you, Acting General Manager of UWI Press. It's an honor and a privilege for me to just dispose of these duties, and thank you for asking. We're moving on, friends. We're moving on. There's just so much that we need to do this afternoon, but very importantly, there are two ladies who are going to be reviewing this book. I'm going to be calling on the First Lady, Dr. Candia Mitchell-Hall, lecturer in Caribbean Civilization and Material Culture in the Institute of Caribbean Studies here at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica. She's also campus coordinator of the cross-campus course Caribbean Civilization. She specializes in African diasporic heritage and memory, with centers her research on areas such as commemoration, race, and identity politics, among others. Dr. Mitchell-Hall is a strong Caribbeanist, and she loves shaping minds to rethink and reframe narratives of erasure that disables the Black community. She's here with us in this building, in this multipurpose room, part of the main library, so might I now invite her to the microphone.
Thank you, moderator, for your generous introduction. And to those who are tuned in, I bring you warm greetings from the Institute of Caribbean Studies. So I was both delighted and humbled when Professor Palmer Adisa asked me to review the first two sections of 100 plus Voices for Miss Lou, as the book and Miss Lou resonates with my own background as a reader whose formative experience is from the Eastern Caribbean. And as I began to consider what my own connection to Miss Lou would have looked like at a distance in Grenada, I remembered singing her songs, or songs that she popularized as a child growing up in the 1990s. And these would include songs like Long Time Gal, Me Never See You, Come Make Me Hold Your Hand. Sing it. Me never see you, come make me hold your hand. Long time, girl, me never see you. Come make me hold your hand and come back, Eliza, among others. By the mid-1980s, Miss Lou had become a Caribbean cultural personality, revered by many as the embodiment of Black diasporic expressive culture. Many of her folk songs were incorporated into the repertoire of national cultural groups in Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, among others. So I add my voice to this review as a Grenadian, Caribbean daughter of the soil, whose work is emboldened by the long tradition of scholarship on commemoration, heroization, race, and identity politics. Again, I am deeply honored to review the first two sections of this important work of memory. And to commence the review, as many others before, I want to commend the editor, Professor Palmer Adisa, and contributors for this groundbreaking memory text on such a remarkable and unwavering cultural icon. And as Jamaica is my second home, I feel at home in saying, this text is Bono Nunos. In 100 plus voices for Miss Lou, editor Opal Palmer Adisa brings together over 100 contributors to commemorate Jamaican cultural icon, the Honorable Dr. Louise Bennett Coverley. This book captures a diversity of texts and voices comprising poems, tributes, memoirs, and essays, and its contributors include an impressive range of poets, please indulge me, authors, lecturers, professors, playwrights, judges, journalists, comedians, writers, historians, performers, musicians, students, librarians, consultants, researchers, producers, politicians, commentators, accountants, activists, pianists, designers, and so on. It is such a remarkable slate of contributors. So my point of entry into the book is through its cover image, entitled Rites of Passage by poet Tommy Ricketts. It delineates the complexities of Bennett as cultural warrior of the Jamaican nation language and memory. In the image, Bennett is illustrated with two symbolic representations, her pen and sword. So the rhetoric of battle and the visions of war are clearly defined in this Miss Lou's cosmology. So this animation has the effect of initiating the reader from very early on into Bennett's vocabulary of war, which opposed the colonial ethos. This is the politics of cultural contestation. Here, the editor's intention is signified through the imaging of Miss Lou, not just as cultural icon, but as political activist who used her pen to contest othering, disabling, and dismissing of the African-derived culture and self by the colonial mentality. In a sense, the image opens up space to think about Bennett's race, gender, and identity politics. This image not only sets the scene of the book, but it also interweaves the complexities of Bennett around boundaryless cultural connectivities and heroization discourses. So these are two major areas of focus I would like to center my review around. In terms of its structure, the book is divided into the book is divided into 4 sections, and it is prefaced by 5 introductory pieces. These contributions contextualize what Bennett means to self and nation. The foreword by the acclaimed Lorna Gordon extends the overarching theme of freedom fighter, while the editor's introduction provides insights into what the birth of the anthology would have looked like and why, of course, the anthology was birthed, which was, of course, conceptualized to memorialize the centenary of Miss Lou's 100th birthday anniversary. Here, Palma Adisa highlights her many encounters with Miss Lou, including face-to-face interviews, and she also makes mention of the ways in which Bennett epitomized her own poem, Jamaican Woman. Moreover, the contributions by the Honorable Oliver Babsy Grange and the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson engender Bennett as cultural influencer and formidable woman, and locate her imagination and her intellect within these heroization narratives. So I will now attend to the first section of the book, which is entitled One Big Family. This section bookends the voice of Bennett. It begins with the performative poem Love Letter and ends with an interview the editor conducted with Miss Lou entitled Me Just Like People. In this section, the contributions are logically arranged to begin with the personal milieu of Bennett, her family, and then how she is more broadly located within the memories of the nation. In terms of the section's overarching focus, the theme of motherhood is constructed in its implicit sense of a mother and her flock of children, her family. It centralizes those who share personal relationalities with Bennett, like Fabian Coverley, her son, who is custodian of her memory and legacy through the work he's doing through her estate. And it continues with the memories of Christine Swaby, her adopted daughter, who opens up on the sensibilities and the vulnerabilities of Bennett. Then it spotlights the wider cultural, national networks of Bennett through those she worked with, mentored, or impacted in one way or the other. In Bunununus, Linda Gambrill reignites the excitement of living close to Miss Lou in Garden Town, while Robinson, in a family connection, Linton Robinson, traces the genealogy of the Robinson family, of which Bennett is situated. In a tribute, Together for Life, Louise and Eric Coverley, the renowned poet Mervyn Morris frames Bennett's cultural path around a mapping of her life with her +1 for life, Eric Coverley. That the essay was adapted from Morris's book entitled Miss Lou, Louise Bennett, and Jamaican Culture signifies the potency of memory work. Additionally, the text highlights the performativity of Bennett's works in the nations, but also how they are evoked across boundaries. The theme diaspora is also imbricated in the text. For one, before 1987, the big moment that changed Bennett's life, she performed her varied cultural expressions in diasporic spaces like London and Canada and so on. And while studying in London, Bennett hosted 2 radio programs whereby she spoke on behalf of and accounted for the region's rich culture. These included Caribbean Carnival and West Indian Guest Night. Morris also captures that big moment, which shifted Bennett's ethos to the diaspora in 1987, and the romantic sensibilities and longings for Jamaica in Come Back Liza. And many of you would be aware, or maybe, that in 1987, Bennett's husband fell ill and they migrated to Canada for better healthcare services. So this sudden and unexpected flight and separation from the flock caused a rupture in the cultural fabric of the nation, but it also beckoned the nation to think about the significance of Bennett to national identity. But of course, Bennett was more than a national figure. And this cross-cultural connectivity to the Caribbean is captured in Miss Lou for Real by the delectable poet Paul Kings Douglas, a Trinidadian born to Grenadian parents. Douglas presents a pan-Caribbean dimension of Bennett, and there are many collaborations in the Caribbean and Canada, and this has resonance to what cultural studies scholar Sonia Stanley Nair calls performance geographies. I also want to draw out 2 important concepts that intersect in the text, which has currency for the present heroization discourse. The interplay between identity, race politics, and heroization is teased out in the text in many different ways. In Jamaica True and True, for example, Franklin Horace Campbell does not limit his tribute to the Jamaicanness of Bennett, but he also addresses the issue of heroizing Bennett, who to his mind is the obvious national selection between Bennett and Marley, and all of this is controversial. Moreover, this heroization theme is also elevated in Miss Lou by the captivating poet Muta Baruka, who, while acknowledging the heroization of Nanny, also makes a case for Bennett as a hero of Jamaican culture, and elsewhere he sees as foundational to what became dancehall. In Act Child Act, she helped shape my life. The illustrious Faye Ellington defines Bennett as a political figure who was part of the decolonization movement, or what she calls smaditization. Likewise, the Honorable Juliet Holness's Miss Louise celebrating glorifies Bennett's heroization as embodied in the big bossy statue that can stand the test of time in Bennett's garden tongue milieu. So now I come to section 2, which is entitled Affirming Our Culture. And in this section, the specific questions about how culture and memories preserved and forgotten are raised, and it further interrogates themes of ambivalence and liberation. So it's provocation of how self forms the basis for collective consciousness forms an arc in the discourse. Perhaps an example would help. I read the term affirming as an act of memory that only the collective can participate in. So in a sense, one can only affirm that which was already transmitted by Bennett to the nation. This kind of cultural passage forces us to think about how memory is being conveyed to the post-Bennett generation. Two streams of thought are situated in the section. The first is that Bennett has currency in death, although the nation language is being relegated for English. And this is a primary concern of Amina Blackwood Meek's piece, Speaking Jamaican, Talking Foreign. Similarly, Patrick Reed Waugh echoes the discourses of ambivalence and forgetting in Keep We Culture Alive. And this is why Fabian Thomas, in his letter to Bennett entitled Me Miss You Bad, dismisses the contemporary disrespect of the nation language, while sociolinguist Velma Pollard, in We Could Be Whoever She Was, returns to the memories of Bennett's humility, which inspired the youth to want to be like her. This sense of authentic humility is also captured in Bongo Herman's If the World Was Like Miss Lou, and the text of the acclaimed actor Oliver Samuels, who shares the many lessons he learned from Miss Lou. Then one salient concern of the text, which appears throughout, and is the final thought, is the sense of loss over the disabling of ringding. And I see this dismantling as dislocating and silencing of memory that perhaps may best be explicated through a reading of Kevin Ormsby's A Ringding Love Affair, and of course the many other voices across the text which raises questions about how we preserve archival memory for posterity in the Caribbean. Now, as many of you may be aware, Ringding was an educational program for children hosted by Bennett that affirmed and heightened their sense of identity and pride in self. It was also Bennett's ultimate challenge to a colonial education system that othered the Black community. Now, time will not afford for more pondering on the rupturing of Ringding, but what is clear is that even disruption cannot erase memory. Therefore, this work opens up endless questions of how we negotiate paradigms of commemorating, heroizing, and investments we make in identity politics in the Caribbean. Hence, it is a memory text, and it is an excellent contribution to the scholarship. No doubt, it will be consulted for generations to come by nationals, Caribbeans, activists, researchers, students, scholars, among others. So as I end this review, I return to Lou's timeless Bennett. Walk good, make good up before you, peace, blessings, and one love.
have to handle microphones gently, you know. Can't spray things on them. Thank you so much, my sister. Thank you so much, Dr. Candia Mitchell-Hall. Really, Miss Lou would have said, Lord, that's sweet, duo. That's sweet, that's sweet. You know, just so many things come together from what has already been said by the persons who have already spoken and yourself. The language just set things away that English language can't say it, you know. We've been having quite a bit of rain, and enough things happen out a door. And when you go out a door, you say, Lord, the place make. When you're tapping at the puddle of water and the dirt and everything, you make it. It just doesn't come across. You say, oh, this is just puddles of water, you know? And when you step in it, but when you say make it treat. And when Vivian Crawford said to him, Grand Picking, tidy your room, it too chaka chaka. You know exactly what my chat say. So the book demo, where can you get this book? Mercy. See, by the way, those of you who are here, you know, you can get it at a reduced price. While you are here today, and I'll tell you more. Yes, my brother, take a picture. Make sure you take me side of it. Right? Miss Lou Bookman, it's 100 plus voices for Miss Lou. The University Bookshop right here at the Mona campus, the book is available there. The Kingston Bookshop, their various branches, available there. Sangster bookstores, you'll find it there. And Fontana, Waterloo Square. I don't know why it's not at Barbican. That's what I shop at. Anyway, that's another story. But I'll tell you something about Kevin O'Brien Chang. A few years ago, he was very excited about just wanting to celebrate Miss Lou, and he did a little thing and put it in the pharmacy. So let us acknowledge Kevin O'Brien Chang and all those persons who understand what Miss Lou has done and continues to do. The legacy lives on. And my sister is our next speaker. You remember that the first two sections of the book were reviewed, and now the second two. Dalia Harris is going to do the second two, and most of you may describe Dalia as your television person, your radio person, but she's much more than that. She's described as a polymath based on her capacity to function at optimal levels in diverse areas. In her first year as co-franchise holder of Miss Jamaica World in 2019, Dalia was integral to the nation's success at the global level. This was Jamaica's fourth victory at the Miss World level. As thespian, she's a multi-award winning writer, actress, songwriter, producer, and director. I can't keep up every time I see her doing something on stage or on TV. I just say, Dalia, I call her, I text her sometimes, or WhatsApp her. I say, you're not tired. Between me and you, I don't think she's asleep. Anyway, that's another story. Starring in over 30 productions since her first commercial play in 2000, she's written, directed, produced over 15 full-length plays, which have collectively earned her, listen to this, 70 Actor Boy nominations for her work. Clap for her. And she younger than me by far, you know, she'll try eggs up. Anyway, that's another story. You know the word eggs up? I can't tell people when they have on masks. Judith that? Judith Wedderburn, you understand the Miss Lou. In a middle introduction, my feel. Right, anyway. Right. Dalia has got several awards, and she's also a showrunner and lead actress in Jamaica's top-ranked television dramas, Ring Game and Thicker Than Water, as well as short series Love and Dance Hall. I'll tell you more about her when she's done, but now it gives me great pleasure, Dalia, to bring you to the microphone, and I will adjust the microphone because I am 5'3" and shrinking, and you are 6 something, all right? When you do that, gentleman over there, Louverture, could you please, you hear the French? Louverture, could you adjust the height while we do this for Miss Dalia Harris?
She's 5'3" and shrinking, and I'm 6 and growing, eh? Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy that Dr. Mitchell Hall contextualized a lot of it for me because them give me a time limit. So, you know, when I read the essays, I could talk about like one essay every day because that's how great they are. So I'm going to try and make it through for you in the time. Now, you don't have to pull me close today. So it's really an honor for me to participate in today's launch of what is unquestionably a significant addition to the legacy of a global cultural revolutionary. That's how I see Miss Lou. How remarkable that Miss Lou actively engaged in the use of her own voice to empower the expressions of the marginalized, and now those voices have emerged from the periphery to the center through contestation, declaration of ownership, the claiming of space in a polyphony that brings such incredible texture to our existence. The anthology is such an important representation of that idea, and it's one of the things that strikes me most about the essays, which is what I'm reviewing this afternoon. For while they all explore Miss Lou's work, they are so thematically diverse, readers will be compelled to engage with the concepts and assertions raised by every single author. In other words, I find something interesting in every single one of them. Them never boring. Them never say the same things over and over again. Yes? The essays, through their range of analysis, reinforce the multiformity of Miss Lou's work. It is laughter, it is anger, it archives experiences, as is evident in the essay Shifting Bodies and Missing Commodities, Louise Bennett, on the impacts of World War II on working class Jamaicans. But not just history, there is futurism. It proposes social change. Miss Lou's reportage, it's folk-based, as Hubert Devonish demonstrates in Stitching Time Together, Meeting and Greeting in Caribbean Song. Canada did for us this long time, girl, me never see you. But Mr. Crawford, we don't know no jankro we eat blossom. So when she said, peel a jankro, sit down on tree top, pick off the blossom. Devonish reminds us, jankro no eat bush, but it's just the unexpected nature of seeing her friend. It's like, oh my God, hell freeze over. Some people would say that. Miss Lou say, jankro pick off the blossom. It is lavish, it is music, it is dance. So the essays are a true testament of the scope of Miss Lou's work. And I find that very important because a lot of times when we engage people with Miss Lou's work, they minimize it to entertainment. They minimize it to poetry. And then when you begin to raise the discourse and you say, no man, it's social commentary, it's developmental work, it's entertainment, education, they seem all shocked. And the essays take care of that. I am very impressed with the accessibility of the texts. And I'll tell you why. Often we challenge the legacies of colonialism, but by our own actions, we subscribe to the very thing we claim to be contesting. Miss Lou's interrogation existed in a space which allowed the people she represented to become active participants in the national discourse. So as Clive Walker reminds us in the essay, The Truth Must Reveal Itself, Miss Lou was invested in earning respect for our language. So how you gonna write about Miss Lou, who was a champion of inclusion in a language confined to readers at a certain level of academia? Don't get me wrong, the essays are complex. There's nothing simplistic about their arguments. However, the manner in which they're framed facilitates comprehension by a wide cross-section of readers, which extends engagement with their content from off the pages into the lived experiences of its readers. So the essays are as valuable to research as they are to national policy, as they are to community spirit, as they are to personal and national development. If you haven't already done so, the essays also prompt you, and I borrow a term from Mervyn Morris, read Louise Bennett seriously. And if you haven't done so, you know, read Louise Bennett seriously? Young people that say seriously? Because the essays capture not just the significance of how she would effectuate her objectives, but the continued relevance of those objectives to national development from pre to post-independence Jamaica, and even now to our own contemporary society. You know, along Miss Lua talked about issues of color and class, patriarchy, internalized racism, which is so brilliantly conveyed by Carolyn Allen in The Politics of Language and Identity in Jamaica, from Miss Lou to the bumpy head gal. Not to mention history, have mercy. We still a quarrel with history. You know how long we are quarrel with history. So the interesting thing I find about a quarrel is it requires more than one person. It is relational. And Carolyn Cooper's Pedestrian Crosses, Sites of Dislocation in Post-Colonial Jamaica, for me, vividly captures that reality among other issues. Cooper reveals a site of confrontation which positions the subaltern as claiming authority from below and, in effect, control of the public sphere. So while language is the primary site of dislocation and the politics of displacement, the quarrel is also about relocation, as well as the replacement of those symbols of colonialism, if lasting change is to take place. This does not suggest that the inclusion of the working class represents the exclusion of any other part of society. And I feel that's why Miss Lou gets such a pushback, because when we say she's representing the working class, people feel that means that she's trying to exclude any other class. Not at all. Rather, she suggests there will always be a juxtaposition of our existence, and until we appreciate and respect the rights of all, it'll go be pure crosses. I hardly believe that Miss Lou could have imagined the lasting impact of her work on generations of not only Jamaicans, but people around the world. We see Dr. Mitchell Hall with us today, and we've heard greetings coming from all over the world. Her influence in inspiring and empowering other literary revolutionaries is underscored in Donna Azaware Solis' The Cunning Jamaican Woman and the Value of the Positive Counter-Narrative. While Isis Samaj Hall and L.A. Wanless's pedagogical conversation, The Language Quarrel in Jamaica, explores the crosses that still exist with the way language and modes of instruction intersect in our Jamaican classrooms. The essays are a celebration of a visionary who Ajamo Angawe reminds us in Miss Lou, organic intellectual of the Jamaican masses, in her examination of racial politics, never craved authentication or validation from middle and upper classes. Miss Lou never watch a soul. She do her thing. And Vivian Lewis shares her global impact at the McMaster University in her essay, Celebrate Miss Lou's Historical Record, A Canadian Perspective. Having whet our appetites for more knowledge and discussion, the essays do that, and more exploration of Miss Lou's work, the anthology serves up a menu from which healthy servings of her work are available at the Uwimuna Library and the National Library of Jamaica. The anthology is therefore not satisfied with just over 100 voices. It inspires readers to add their own voice, not just reviews of Miss Lou's work, but the use of her work as points of departure towards their own engagement with diverse themes. I congratulate the authors, the publisher. Look here, 100 plus, you know, Jamaica people, not easy. If you manage 2 and 3, it's not easy. This is over 100. Prof, you're good. You're good, bad, Jamaican people would say. The conceptualizers of this anthology, which I believe fair, and I know it should have happened before, but everything is in its time. Because I feel, had it happened when we celebrated Miss Lou's 100th, maybe people would have seen it as tokenism for that time, but what it represents now is forever. It represents forever. So I was as excited to read it as I am to utilize its content towards my own continued research on Miss Lou. You're not getting a copy yet? Nah, crosses. Thank you.
So the microphone now will come down to a level. And then Louverture is going on. I'm making a drama out of that, saying, come, 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 so he can fix me back to. Dalia, that was splendid. That was really very good. And I don't think I'm talking out of turn if I said your master's was on Miss Lou, and your PhD, your candidate, PhD program, that's on Miss Lou as well? On Brookings. Okay, on Brookings. Lord, I wonder if she ever said, Jubilee, Jubilee, this is the year of Jubilee. Lord Jesus, your mercy. But let me, yes, let me thank you for all of the work and how you've shared your own research on Miss Lou over the time that you've been doing it. Thank you so much. And let us continue. You know, I think we're going to Garden Town now. I feel is there we're going. Because Fabian Coverley, son of the late cultural ambassador, Dr. the Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley, and Eric Coverley, who was popularly called in the 60s, 70s as Chalk Talk. If you've not yet heard that term, look it up. We'll tell you more about that, except he would just have an easel with a board, and while you're talking, he would come up with something amazing there. They were both two beautiful artists, all right. So Eric has 27 years of experience in the fire protection and security systems industry. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Coverley Holdings Incorporated and Director Consultant, International Management Agencies Incorporated in Markham, Ontario. He's traveled extensively throughout the world in his career, and now let's see if Fabian Coverley will take us to reminisce in Gordon Town. Fabian.
Good evening, Miss Faye, and hello to you, Miss Opal. Hope everything is fine and everything is all right. It's good to be talking to you now at this time for the promotion of the 100 plus voices of Miss Lou. You want me to talk about Miss Lou, but there's so much to talk about that we're gonna have to take a little segment. And what I decided to do, I wasn't gonna read my interview to you, but probably give you a different version of when Miss Lou and I traveled. We traveled together in 1967 to come to Canada. Actually, it was the trip was to come to Canada because Miss Lou was invited by the Caribbean Committee, Caribbean Cultural Committee, CCC, to come up and take part in their parade, which was set for this was the first Caribbean taking place in Toronto. So it was Caribbean 67. So we both traveled together. Now in those days, a lot of people didn't know it, but Miss Lou did not like to travel alone. So whenever she was traveling, she always had somebody, a companion. And it just so happened that in 1967, it was my turn, because when my turn had come before to travel with her to go to England. But my father, Eric, decided that he would travel with her to England because he had never been to England and I couldn't force him. So I had to bite my tongue and wait till 1967 when we traveled together. Now, in those days, like I said, Miss Lou don't like to travel alone, and she never liked to take plane. It was a phobia at that time. She got over it over time. But in those days, you know, if she could drive or take the train, glory. However, so there's no way to come to Toronto without flight. So we flew from Palisades. I remember very distinctly. It was called that in those days. And we flew into Toronto. And we went and we stayed at the Royal York Hotel together. She was put up by the Caribbean Cultural Committee to take part in the Caribana parade, the very first Caribana parade that took place. It was a success, and everybody was excited to see Miss Lou. And it kind of opened me up at that time as to what, because I'd never traveled with her abroad before, right? I knew that Jamaicans respected her, and wherever she went, it was always Miss Lou, Miss Lou, Miss Lou, Miss Lou, right? But this was the first time that I was experiencing it on international or foreign land, and to see how the people treated her, it kind of opened up my eyes to something that I never knew before, because here I was in a strange land, and people were probably even more excited to see her than when she was in Jamaica. So it was a revelation to me. So anyway, she did her thing here in Toronto. We did it. And then it was the same year of Expo 67. So she was also invited by the Tourist Board of Jamaica to come. But guess what? We're not flying to Montreal. We're going to take the train. So we jump on the train, share a coach together, or a cabin, whatever, and we arrive in Montreal. I forget the name of the hotel that we were staying at. But again, more people. And Montreal was a little bit different from Toronto, because Montreal is predominantly French. So the people are talking, and you comprende, don't understand them, because I only studied Spanish when I was going to school. I never studied French. So I am completely out to lunch. Anyway, luckily there are some interpreters along with us. And we went and we did the expo, which was quite something to see again, because Expo 67 was one of the first expos. And we did all the pavilions, not all, but many, right? In about a day and a half. We had a 3-day pass. But Miss Lou got tired. So Miss Lou kind of rested in the hotel while yours truly was now allowed to go to the expo alone. And that was, again, another eye-opening, eye-popping experience, because there I was now, not really escorted, but, doing my own thing. And it was really a revelation to visit Expo 67 and meet so much different people. From Expo, we then took the train again, and we were now going to New York. She had no engagements in New York, but we had lots of relatives in New York, just like how we had lots of relatives here in Toronto when we came to Toronto. And we acquainted with them and visited with them. And when we get to New York now, Grand Central Station, we then took a taxi to our Auntie Florence, that she had a high regard for, right? And we went there, and again, more excitement, because Miss Lou is in town, right? And all the Jamaican people around that neighborhood, right, is clamoring to see Miss Lou and wanting to almost touch her. After about 2 or 3 days, we both decided that I would spend some time with my cousins in New York. So we separated because she was now being looked after by her Auntie Florence, and it wasn't really necessary for me to be there all 24/7. So we went in our separate ways, and I went and spent time with my cousins and get to kind of see New York and do an evaluation of New York. So we spent 2 weeks in New York, and while in New York, I must tell you a little story. We went into Macy's, who was one of the big department store at the time. And I believe Miss Lou, before she came home in '54, spent some time working at Macy's. She was one of the people that worked the telephone. So anyway, we get into Macy's. And in those days, Miss Lou had, if she's coming back, she had to get something for everybody in her family, right? And her family was quite large, with a contingent of people that worked for us and was just always there. So gifts had to be purchased for all these people. But Miss Lou had a thing also for shoes. So I'm going around with Miss Lou, and we're buying all these things, including Miss Lou bought 17 shoes. 17, right? And I am sweating with all this load and parcels now. And we were still walking the store until we walk into a clearance department of the store. And guess what? The shoes are in abundance, and the shoes are cheaper than the ones she had previously bought. So now we have to go to the exchange and exchange all those shoes, get the money, so now that she can now buy cheaper, almost better quality shoes. It just so happens that they happen to be on sale at that time. And we ended up buying, initially 17 shoes. We ended up buying 26 pairs of shoes. Again, these are things that John public don't know about Miss Lou, that she had a thing for it. She had a thing for certain dresses. I forget the name of the designer that she used to use. But, you know, she bought those dresses and she bought her shoes. So now everybody could get a gift once we returned. So we then eventually, the week and a half, 2 weeks in New York was finished. And we ended up now having to jump on the plane that she dreaded to fly back home to Kingston. So that was that adventure. But that adventure was kind of twofold for me, because 2 years after that, I had to make a decision of coming to foreign, as it was called in those days. My choice was either to come to New York or come to Toronto to learn electronics, because I wanted a diploma in electronics. Well, having been to Toronto and having been to New York and doing my evaluation, I decided to come back to Toronto. Why? Toronto was a cleaner city than New York. New York was full of excitement left, right, and center. Toronto was more subdued. And if you really and truly wanted to get something done, and I needed to get my studies done with less distraction, I decided to come to Toronto. And coming to Toronto proved to be destiny for myself, because I came to Toronto, I studied, I got my diploma, I got my landed immigrant, I came back, worked a little bit for JBC, and then I came back to Canada. For in the long run, me coming to Canada made it possible for Miss Lou and my father to come to Canada to live, which they lived for almost 20 odd years here, right? And Canada was influential in keeping my father alive for an extra 17 years because of the care, the medical care that he was able to get here. That, not to say that Jamaica couldn't have done it, because he had a couple of heart attacks, right? But Jamaica at that time wasn't able to give him the post-operative care that would be needed after such a massive heart attack, because he had a quadruple bypass, not single, not double, not triple, but a quadruple bypass, right? So me telling you, coming to Canada here, well, like I says, destiny, because by me coming to Canada, Miss Lou and my father were able to come to Canada and live a good, solid life.
Thank you, Fabian Coverley. We didn't hear about Gordon Town per se, but we heard an important story about your 26 pairs of shoes. Who does that? Mercy, Father. Anyway, right. But I don't know how many of you know this, but Miss Lou loved icy mints. Yes. She loved icy mints. And so when I was preparing for her farewell, I kind of do some different kind of preparation when I'm doing these events. So I call the funeral parlor, I say, what in the coffin? Come and know something special after India. Them say, the icy mint in there. So I say, good, everything kosher, copacetic. All right, listen to me now. If you are watching from overseas, you see this book that we are launching today, you can get 35% off. I'm going to give you a promo code, and this will last until May 31, so a month and a few days, Miss Karen. 35% off. Now, either record what I say, or it's already recorded. Go back and listen to it or write it down, which is 03ML22. 03ML22, valid between April 28 and May 31. Conditions apply like everything else. All right, and remember, let me tell you what the discounted price is for the launch here today. Discounted price, okay, $32.50 US, and Jamaican is $5,037.50. All right, so we will take your cash, we'll take your check, we'll take your credit card, MasterCard, Visa, and those of you still holding on to the key card and your book grant can be applied here. Right, now there are many contributors, and a few of them are on this program to read their pieces or share their memories of Miss Lou. I'm particularly pleased to be able to introduce at this time the Honorable Mervyn Morris, OM, Professor Emeritus of the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica. He's a former poet laureate of Jamaica and has written extensively on the life and work of Miss Lou. He it was who edited her selected poems and Auntie Roach's say. Prof, over to you.
I'm reading from my contribution to the 100+ book. It is called Together for Life, Louise and Eric Coverley. When Eric Chalk Talk Coverley, a well-known figure in Jamaican show business, attended an Excelsior High School prize-giving ceremony at which Louise Bennett performed, she asked for his autograph. Mr. Coverley expressed pleasure in Louise's talent and encouraged her to develop it. He was an impresario, so he asked her mother's permission for Louise to take part in the popular Christmas morning concert he organized. After he had visited 3 or 4 times, Louise was persuaded by her mother to accept the invitation. She was 17 when she took part in the 1936 edition of the Christmas morning concert at Coke Memorial Hall in downtown Kingston. She pleased the audience and did 3 encores. Eric Coverley's check was her first professional fee. She continued to perform, and her first book, Jamaica Dialect Verse, came out in 1942. In May 1943, the Gleaner began to publish Louise Bennett poems each Sunday, and her work became widely known. She was often invited to perform at churches, for women's clubs, and at drama festivals. Sometimes she was asked to come and see and comment on dramatizations of her poems. She found herself increasingly involved in assessing performances and began to feel the need for formal training. She thought of studying in the United States, where her father's sister, Aunt Florence, lived, but while doing promotional work for the Jamaica Federation of Women, she was told of another possibility and encouraged to apply. She was awarded a 1945 British Council Scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, RADA, the famous drama school in London. 3 months after she arrived in England, when she went with others to record Christmas messages, she was offered a contract to host a radio program on the BBC overseas service. It was called Caribbean Carnival and was recorded each week before a live audience and transmitted worldwide. In 1947, after RADA, she rejected opportunities to remain in Britain as a professional actress and returned to work in Jamaica. She taught speech and drama at Excelsior High School and continued to write and perform. And then in 1950, she was appointed island supervisor of the Women's Federation, but finding it difficult to make ends meet, she went back to England and the BBC. She hosted an hour-long weekly radio show called West Indian Guest Night. She did television work as a storyteller and acted with some repertory companies. Urged by her Aunt Florence, Louise moved to New York in February 1953. In spite of her experience, it was not easy to get a job. But after a while, she did some radio broadcasting at WWRL with Alma John and sang folk songs at the Village Vanguard in Greenwich Village. She taught folk songs to various people, including Irving Burgee and Harry Belafonte. When Eric Coverley came to New York in September 1953 on assignment with the Jamaican delegation to the United Nations, he phoned Louise on her birthday. She was delighted to hear from him, and they got together immediately. They co-directed a folk musical called Day in Jamaica, which included folk songs, Anansi stories, Bennett poems, and chalk talk routines by Eric. The show began at St. Martin's Little Theatre in Harlem and by request moved around Episcopalian church halls in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. As they were often invited to the same parties, they spent a lot of time together. After seeing her safely home, Eric would often be hurrying to catch a late train back from Brooklyn to where he was staying in Manhattan. Sometimes he was so tired that he fell asleep and missed his stop. According to them both, before rushing to catch his train late one night, he said, "It looks like I'll have to marry you." And she said, "Coverley, that could never be a proposal." They were married on 30th of May, 1954 at St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Harlem. Eric was 42, Louise 35. They returned to Jamaica in 1955 and looking for somewhere to make a home, they bought a neglected stone building on a hill beside the river in Gordon Town and transformed it into a haven. Eric had had a son, Fabian, before he married Louise. For the next quarter of a century, their well-staffed household absorbed a steady stream of other people's children, whom they brought up with Fabian. Louise and Eric were based in Gordon Town until after Ring Ding and Miss Lou's Views, her radio commentary program, were cancelled by the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation in 1982. They moved for a while to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, from where it was easy to travel to engagements in North America and the United Kingdom. Eric's health became a serious problem, while they were in Florida. To get medical care they might afford, they returned to Jamaica and were advised that he needed heart bypass surgery. Fabian, who was now a Canadian citizen, suggested they come to him in Toronto, and he sponsored their admission in 1987. After a while, they were able to get an apartment for themselves in Scarborough in a building for senior citizens. When Miss Lou performed in Jamaica on World Theatre Day in March 1990, she declared, "Any which part me live, Toronto, London, Florida, a Jamaica me day." They were residing in Toronto when they died. Eric in 2002, Louise in 2006. Her body was flown to Kingston accompanied by Eric's remains, which were reinterred in National Heroes Park next to where Louise would be buried. In the eulogy at the official funeral, Rex Nettleford said, "Dear Miss Lou, just walk good at your hair, along with Mas Eric, or Coverley as you affectionately called him, who is waiting for you at Heroes Park. Just remember us back here. We remain your faithful friends and admirers."
Only like Professor Mervyn Morris can. Thank you so very much. And so we're streaming, okay? So Dennis Duncan and his team members, Andrea, Peart, and Louverture, Whitehorn have made this possible. So I decided to go on to YouTube, at YouTube, right? And there are 92 people on at this time. And there have just been some marvelous comments. Shirley Massey, good evening, everyone. I'm grateful to be a part of this wonderful event and to know that I'm a part of this inspiring book. It is indeed an honor for me. Other people are saying extraordinary effort by all voices. Franklin Campbell, congratulations, Professor Palmer, Deason team, great job. Frankie and Grob Cooper of Fab 5. I mean, I know if all I want to know is if Frankie grow in a Miss Lou hand kind of a thing, right? Let me just, Malachi Smith, who we'll hear from later on, is there as well. Jean Laurie Chin, such a thoughtful review indeed. And these are of the reviews that we've heard. Karen M. Henry, this is great. There is enough people comment here, say no. What stores in the USA can we purchase the book? Karen, that's a question. Send me some matches, more, and I will. Matches, if you're in the diaspora, I hope you know what matches is. Right, so when we get the matches, may share with you how you can get the book if they are foreign. Globally, there is an arrangement. So let me go now to another person who was greatly influenced by the late Miss Lou. That's Joan Andrea Hutchinson, a recipient of the Order of Distinction. She's a writer, a poet, and spoken word performer, committed to the perseverance of just making sure that everything go on and the preservation of our culture. She's described as the heir apparent of Miss Lou. She thanks her for laying the foundation for other writers. So let's join Ms. Joan Andrea Hutchinson. Sister?
My name is Joan Andrea Hutchinson, and I'm your quintessential Jamaican woman. This poem was written in 1996 as a tribute to the Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley, Miss Lou, thanking her for her contribution to Jamaican culture and her amazing legacy. It's called Tenky Miss Lou Tenky. Now, me I want born Jamaican, I'm proud, I'm a wife I feel proud too. To walk around and big up your chest and say thanks to Miss Lou. You see, when she did start, she never knew how it would go. Enough people went to laugh and I call her Papi Show. But she galang strong and she stick it out because she knows that she did right. In her belly bottom, she did know one day they would have to see the light. You see, end time trouble take we, and Miss Lou put we good name on the map. And when that push Jamaica heritage and lad, she wouldn't stop. She say, take kin teeth keep a heart bun when times never so sweet. Good luck will come as long as foul a crutch up dungle heap. Enough of them did things that she crazy and enough make up them face. Oh, Miss Lou chat this buguyaga Patwa sinting all over the place. Cause they went in Patwa was bad English. They never know a poor thing. They wouldn't tell Nancy's story and folk song they wouldn't sing. But at the jackass with in long tail bag of cocoa coming down and the peeled jankro pantry top just make them head pin wrong. And little by little then start with Bakar, start with fan her flame. And say there after so much year, Miss Lou I want household name. No, we not shame to chat with one a language, and we are thank you for it, Miss Lou. Them a teach it clear at university and Uncle Sika you. Them a make film, them a write book, them a sing whole heap of song. And I say, oh, Patwa is a good language, but you didn't know that all along. So now we turn up proud to be Jamaican and we want the whole world to hear. Miss Lou, enough thanks for Howdy and Tenky never broke no square. Thank you.
Howdy and thank you, never broke no square. Lilith Nelson, thank you, Lilith. She says, I feel so proud and humbled to be a contributor to this publication along with persons of such eminence. Thanks, Professor Palmer, Adisa, and your team. There are just so many comments. I'll share some more as I go along. Right, it's time for Faith Diagula. No, I don't know how many of you have ever heard Faith Diagula imitate Miss Lou. If you don't know, you swear is Miss Lou. When Miss Lou was alive, you think is Miss Lou. And now that Miss Lou not there here, you think she come back, if you listen to Faith. So Faith Diagula is a singer who has toured with Baron Lee and the Dragonaires and performed with many local and foreign artists. She was on the cabaret circuit on the North Coast for many years and appeared in at least 3 pantomimes, Moonshine and Nancy, I think, Love is a Thing, with Miss Lou, and also the very first pantomime that I ever appeared in, which is why I wrote that thing, Ak Child Ak, which was Music Boy, written by the late Trevor Rohn. So Sister Faith, me no know which part you're there right now, but no, me think you're in a sentence. So come on in, child, come in.
In the 1960s, I remember I was asked by the Girls' Brigade leader to perform a Miss Lou's dialect. I was very excited about that because what really happened is Papa never allowed us to talk Patwa. It was a big thing if you talk Patwa in the yard. So this was my opportunity, you know, to talk my Patwa man. So I went, I got the dialect and I was reading it and practicing it before the mirror at home. And then Papa came over and he was in another room and he came over and he said, why you turn off the radio? I paused then, you know. And I said, I didn't turn off the radio, Papa. The radio wasn't on. He said, ha, 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 you fooling me or something. I was listening to Miss Lou's and now the radio is off. So you're going to tell me, Eric the Aguilar, that I didn't hear right? I said, Papa, I was doing a Miss Lou's dialect. Ha ha, he says, you were doing a Miss Lou's dialect. I said, yes, Papa. So I had to convince him. So I said, go ahead and do Miss Lou's dialect, then let me hear you. He laughed. So then I just started doing Miss Lou's dialect to the end. And he just looked at me in alarm. He was alarmed. He looked at me in amazement and he said, but hold on. You know you sound like Miss Lou. You could have fooled me, man. You could have fooled me. But Faith, you have to go and talk like Miss Lou, man. That sounds good. Ever since, I've been talking like Miss Lou. But the thing with Miss Lou now, when I met Miss Lou, and she found out that I could talk like her, she called Loy Kelly Barrow Miller and she said to her, Loy, I want Faith to talk like me. For you talk, little one, talk like me for Loy. Loy, when you hear her, you see, you're going to see she sound even better than me. So I said, Lord, Mr. Loy, it's good to see you. And all Miss Lou, Lord of mercy, it's good to see you, man. So when I started talking like that, she just burst out in the big laugh. And then she said, you know, Faith, I remember I was going abroad and my husband knew that I'm not supposed to be on the island at all. And I just hear the man say to me, you know, Louise, that girl Faith Aguilar, she really fooled me, you know, because me think it was you. I said, but oh, Louise tell me so she gone abroad and she's still in Jamaica. I said,
You know, you nearly make me lose my husband. He picked me. But go on, you go on. Go on, you walk good. So me walk good. Ay, 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 ay.
Oh boy, thank you for that, my sister. Lilith Nelson says, "Oh, Dalia, that was so good. We can't go through all of the comments them so fast, you know." Jeanette Campbell, yes, splendid. Thank you, reviewers, both of you reviewers. Maxine Plummer, Dalia, talk about Bunununus personified. What is this? I can't manage these people. All right, and Andreen Bonner, what a piece of jollyment. I'm so honored to be here, delighted that my poem, She Who Laughs the Revolution, is included in the anthology. What good, Miss Lou. You turn them with the people in program, yeah? And now it's time for Beverly Lashley. She's a national librarian at the National Library of Jamaica. So let's listen to what Miss Bev has to say.
Celebrating the legacy of Miss Lou. So Prof. Adisa invite me to come to Miss Lou Labrish for share about how Miss Lou make history to celebrate her 100th year. So me do me internet research and this is what me find. Honorable Louise Simone Bennett Coverly, folklorist, actress, poet, singer, radio personality, lecturer, writer, journalist, cultural ambassador, social commentator, and comedian. Dubbed as the Queen of Jamaican Theatre and Mother of Jamaican Culture. Prominent preserver of Jamaican performance acts. First black person to be admitted to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. Not a word about historian. So me call on Brannan see, cause me and you know say, him nah go samfy me. Him say, go check E Street at the National Library. That was an excerpt from Miss Lou Make History by yours truly, and it can be found in 100 plus voices for Miss Lou. But today, I am delighted to share with you on behalf of the National Library of Jamaica, which is the home of Jamaica's rich cultural heritage. We must congratulate Professor Opal Palmer Adisa and the UWI Press for producing 100 plus voices for Miss Lou and for depositing same with the National Collection. With this significant publication, the story of Miss Lou, our Bunununus cultural ambassador, friend and mother, just got sweeter. As we celebrate the legacy of Miss Lou, the NLJ boasts the Miss Lou Archives, which represents the early life of her works and information about her. These really date as far back as 1883 to 1988. The collection is largely comprised of material collected during her life in Jamaica. The Miss Lou Archives is housed in the NLJ's special collection, and these are arranged in 10 major series. Now these include her correspondence, they are personal and professional. We have her writing and performances, the Nancy pantomime plays, and our very own ring ding. We have artifacts, and as you know, we have our little brown purse, photographs, audiovisual materials, and we couldn't leave out the Eric Coverly papers. This 100 plus collection of essays, poems, and short stories will enrich the offerings of local and international knowledge seekers, representing the best of Jamaican creativity and history in the making. We can all agree that the story of Miss Lou and where she do fi we will go on for generations. Her work is the wellspring from Jamaican life flows. a never-ending cycle of generosity of spirit and love for the nation. The National Library of Jamaica celebrates 100 plus voices of Miss Lou and now listens for 100 more. Big up Prof. Palmer and thank you, Miss Lou.
Thank you very much. Karen, could you put some of that information about the book in the chat on the YouTube? Because that would be very helpful, because it's quite a bit, and to read it out people may not be able to write it down. Harcourt Fuller, it's good to see that you're there. He says, this is so great for our country and culture. Such a proud moment for us. Big up Professor Disa. And he called me Queen Ellington. All right, et al. All right? And, okay, fine. And you know that he's big, strong Maroon, and he had the celebration over in his Maroon community a few days ago. And the other Maroon in the community here in this space is Vivian Crawford. He always makes it very clear that he's a Maroon, okay? Now, Bernadette Worrell Johnson is a librarian in the West Indies and Special Collections Mona Library and the University of the West Indies, Mona. And Jessica C. Lewis Marshall is the Deputy Librarian, Public Service Outreach and Special Projects, Mona Library. Jessica is unable to be with us today. She's on maternity leave, but Bernadette Worrell Johnson is going to do her presentation on behalf of both of them. So let's join Bernadette.
Hello, everyone. I am Bernadette Worrell Johnson, a librarian in the West Indies and Special Collections, WISC of the UA Mona Library. Along with the former head of the WISC, Jessica Lewis Marshall, an exhibition on Dr. the Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley was conceptualized as the library's contribution to the campus-wide activities that were coordinated by the IGDS for the occasion of Miss Lou's 100th birthday, aptly titled 100 Days of Celebration, Louise Bennett Centennial. Mrs. Louise Marshall and I are proud contributors to the 100 plus Voices for Miss Lou anthology being launched here today with our entry dubbed Jamaican Language Quechua University. We are very pleased to have this opportunity to provide you with an overview of our exhibition and also to invite you to visit the WISC and become engulfed in the material on this nation builder. Our exhibition, A Class Act, celebrating Louise Bennett Coverley, ran at the UA Mona's main library from October 2019 through to March 2020 and focused on Miss Lou's work in getting the Jamaican dialect respected at all levels. It placed the spotlight on Miss Lou's contribution to teaching, academia, her publications, and her influence on scholarship. A Class Act charted a path from Miss Lou's formative years, which bred her passion for Jamaican folklore, language, and culture, all the way through her blossoming into the performer and educator she grew to become. The exhibition also reminded the community of the unique resources available on this cultural icon in the library. Miss Lou reflected on the Jama language and the heights it had reached, and the library's exhibition spoke to her being an ambassador for change. It also examined her work in Jamaican literature and the local theater, and how these contributed to the place Jamaican dialect earned in the society. In appreciation of this persona that was Miss Lou, and to give due consideration for the visual or auditory learner, a class act included a montage of short videos including interviews and performances with Miss Lou. These reflective features of the exhibition evoked feelings of nostalgia and awe, especially with the inclusion of photographs across her life and career. Furthermore, selections from her manuscript collection, Miss Lou's Views, elicit much discussion, partly because of the continued relevance of her discourse decades after they were published. At the exhibition's launch, there was a convergence of students, budding poets, distinguished scholars, and the lovers of poetry paying homage to this cultural icon. Its content stimulated discussions on the very discourse that has grown since her death, highlighting the multiplicity of research that have emerged on her persona and impact. A class act made valiant effort to acknowledge the magnitude of research interrogating this cultural icon, which has grown exponentially since her passing. The IISC of the Mona Library proudly boasts evidence of this continuity to the legacy of Miss Lou, with dissertations as early as 1987 from Mona. Consistent Caribbean and global postgraduate research and scholarly publications have shown the countless avenues of study, especially within the humanities and social sciences. We invite you to view a condensed version of this display on the UE Mona Library's exhibitions webpage. Congratulations to Professor Palmer Adisa and all the contributors to this sterling work. Thank you for your attention, and the IISC remains open to faculty for class visits so students can interact with Miss Lou material. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you spoke on behalf of Bernadette Warren Johnson, on behalf of Jessica C. Lewis Marshall. They're both from the University of the West Indies Library. Pauline Stone Mary says, congrats to Opa Ladisa and all who are engaged in making this a reality. Arlene Sawyers, only one Miss Lou. This is a great accomplishment. Congratulations to all involved. And Norma Dixon, congrats to all who are recognized in the 100+ voices for Miss Lou, poetry, tributes, interviews, and essays. This Shirley Massey, good evening, I'm grateful to be, oh, I think I read that already, but we now have, people are still there, 85 people online. We're moving on to, and by the way, if you are in the virtual space, you know, see where you can get the book there. Yes, then put it in the chat. So maybe you've been enjoying the performances and the presentations and didn't even notice that. So just look in the chat, you'll see it, UE Press, and you can get your information there. Malachi Smith, I have the pleasure and honor of knowing Malachi for 50 years or thereabout, yeah, because we've been performing in different spaces and sometimes overlap over that time. He's a fellow of the University of Miami's Michener Caribbean Writers Institute, where he studied poetry under Lorna Gordon and playwriting under Fred D'Aguilar, an alumnus of Florida International University, Miami-Dade College, Edna Manley College, and Miami-Dade County Public Safety Institute. Please understand that while in Jamaica, Malachi was a police officer as well. Right? Is he going to kill me for that? No, I don't think so. He was a founding member of Poets in Unity, and they played such an important role in the whole business of poetry and performance and the performance word. Malachi won in the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission. You'll remember Mr. Crawford, Best Adult Poet 2014 and 2017, 4th place Choice Writer 2017, and 2009 Most Outstanding Writer in the poetry category. More on Malachi anon. Here's the man himself.
I am Malachi Smith. I moved to the US in the late 1980s and had the distinct pleasure of performing in a benefit concert for Miss Lou. After the performance, I went over to say hi, and her husband said to me, Malachi, you're a phenomenal actor. I'd love to talk to you sometime. So I started visiting their home, their summer home in Broward County. One day I went, Miss Lou said, Malachi, I feel like I'll eat a curry goat. So I said, sure, I'll get you one. So I went off to the restaurant and I bought the biggest goat I could get. And when I went back, Miss Lou was smiling. She said, Malachi, I cooked some soup and I don't know if you eat from old people. I said, what, Miss Lou? This is one soup Malachi is going to drink. And that soup was delicious. And after her passing, the more I process it, the more I realized that she was passing on something to me in that soup. And so it is an honor and indeed a privilege for me and a pleasure for me to be featured in this anthology, 100+ voices for Miss Lou. and I shall read my poem, My Jamaican Tongue, from the anthology. My Jamaican tongue too sweet for me to throw it away. When you hear me talk, I don't play me a play. Like my professor friend who got circumcised, dash him Jamaican tongue to get recognized. My tongue is African, Caribbean, jump talk, flute, pan, percussion, banjo, mentos, cap, rock steady, rasta, reggae, politics, sugar cane, sweat, slavery, blood and pain, blend that with English, Chinese, Syrian, Indian. My tongue is out of many one. Me nah dash my tongue. Me love it to my heart. Before I go back home, because me and it now part. It's too sweet like calypso. If your tongue is ballroom dance, see me a go-go. I don't have to draw out my vowels like Robin shooting his bow. I make my point, my tongue just flows like note from Dan Drum and trombone. I don't envy you for yours, so leave me with my own. You think it's everything I say I want you to understand? My tongue is a disguised part of my oral tradition. When our ancestors died and couldn't afford to leave legacy, them wrap up them tongue in a tide and pass it on to it. Stop your rank. Your tongue was derived, and so too is mine. If yours is whiskey, mine is pure wine. Harp, rumba, fire, dance, a goat skin. Your tongue is Her Majesty's, mine a same thing. So you can cause your innuendos and aspersions. I don't give a damn, cause when you hear me talk, you must always hear Jamaican.
Thank you, Malachi. Long time I don't hear the word, or the phrase, stop your rank. When you hear that, you know exactly. So stop your rank, all right? And my mother and my grandmother used to say, what are we to pick me forward? That's, why is Mr. Crosser laughing around there till him a choke? Mercy. Karen M. Henry, oh no, Miss Lou and I are shoe people, but I've never bought 26 pairs. Oh my goodness. Wendy Otley Wright, good evening everyone. And Molly Wright, what stores in the, please look in the chat, you'll see where you can get the book if you're overseas. Sophia Nicholson, so honored to have met this icon. I want serious icon, I owe my love of the Jamaican culture to this wonderful woman. I'm very honored and privileged, Dalia, and I say that because our paths cross in our professions. When I was a youngster at JBC and Miss Lou was doing the ring ding in TV, she also was in radio because she used to do our Miss Lou's Views. Can you imagine sitting in the same room with Miss Lou and she regale you with all this story, and then she sent somebody go buy patty. She loved patties as well. And she have our ice mint and our patty, and we sit down there and talk until she all autograph one of our books for me right then. I have it 1980 when me had the morning ride, and she tell me, keep on a galang on the morning ride. That's how she write in her book. And then you go up to our house at Garden Town. No for we little young people go up there. She and Uncle and talk, Mass Eric. Just envelop her, embrace, and just take we under them wings. Mercy. All right, we'll move on now. So I wonder if that lady her name, Sosa, from Sierra in the bandana. I say, I'm she. Are you Donna? No, who is Donna? Donna is on video. Okay. Dr. Donna Ware Soley is the president of the Association of Caribbean Women's Writers and Scholars and former coordinator of the Hispanic Serving Institutions Pathways to the Professorate Fellowship at Florida International University, FIU, where Soley is an associate professor of English and affiliate faculty in African and African Diaspora Studies, Center for Women and Gender Studies, and the Latin American and Caribbean Center of FIU. Her critical and creative writings have been widely published in national and international forums, including scholarly and literary journals and edited volumes. So here we go to Dr. Donna Ware Soley. And it's not slowly, it's solely.
So my name is Azza, and I wanted to approach the question of what Jamaican Patwa means to me from the perspective of a Jamaican mother who came to the United States as a teenager and has lived in the United States most of my life. And so I have 3 children who were born and raised in the United States, 2 of whom speak Jamaican Patwa, one of whom appreciates it but doesn't speak it as much. And I interviewed my children because I wanted to see what I have passed on about Jamaican Patwa to them, or what they think about Jamaican Patwa as a language that they inherited really from me and from other Jamaican relatives around them. So my son Aya said that he loves Jamaican Patwa. He speaks it a lot. And what it means to him is that he has an identity and a heritage, a culture, and a language all his own. We live in Miami, and he says that this is a very diverse city, and that Cubans have their own language, the Haitians have their own language, and all these other groups have their own language apart from English. And he loves the fact that he also has a language of his own that he can speak. Just like they speak their language around him and he doesn't understand what they're saying, he can speak his language around them and they don't understand what he's saying. So it makes him stand out. It makes him unique. It makes him feel special that he has a language all his own, so a language that he can be proud of. My son Kai, when I called him up at the University of Florida, he told me that Jamaican language is sweet and it's a love language. I never want to ask him what I mean by love language. But he said, it's a sweet language and it's very passionate. It's a very passionate language. So it can be passionate in a good way, as in love, and it can be passionate in a bad way, as in anger. But one of the things he really loves about Jamaican language is how it is lit. The language is so lit because, you know, when he hears a song and they use some Jamaican phrases, some Jamaican words in it, the cadence and rhythm of the Jamaican Patwa just elevates the song to a new level and makes the song really unique and special. And he just loves the rhythm, the rhythmic nature of Jamaican Patwa. And then my other son, my eldest, said that when he was little, whenever he would hear me speaking in Jamaican Patwa, he would know that I was angry because I always spoke Jamaican Patwa when I was angry. I don't think that's the only time I spoke it, but that's what he remembers, right? And so he also thinks that it's a language that I guess for him is associated with passion, you know, as well, because that's the language you use when you're excited or when you're angry. So, so I wanted to represent that from their perspective because based on what they've told me, the language is a legacy. They see Jamaican Patwa as a legacy that they inherited from me and their dad and their Jamaican relatives. And it's a legacy that they're proud of, proud to call their own, that is unique and special to them. So that is my account of what Jamaican language means to my children. And to me, it's a legacy language, something I can pass on that they can be proud of. So I went to Old Harbour Primary School in St. Catherine, Jamaica, Old Harbour, St. Catherine, from grade 2 to grade 5. And I was discouraged from speaking Patwa by my teachers and by the school principal. We were beaten with a cane or a leather strap if we were caught speaking the way we spoke at home. This was especially true for those bright students who were being groomed to pass the common entrance exam. Patwa, the language spoken at home, was getting in the way of our class advancement and social mobility. The only safe way in which to speak my parents' and grandparents' language in school was to recite Louise Bennett's poetry at school concerts. My grandmother died when I was 8 years old. I became shy and withdrawn. But when I performed Louise Bennett's poetry in my grandmother's language, or a close approximation of it, I was no longer the unlucky girl who had lost her mama. I was barefaced and bold. Louise Bennett made an important intervention in my consciousness at a crucial age. I was just learning the relationship between being smart and being formally educated. I had thought my Makala relatives smart enough without much formal education. I learned mathematics from making change, weighing flour and sugar, and measuring oil for the villagers who bought groceries from my Uncle Wame's shop in Oman Pond, St. Catherine, and my Uncle George's shop in Crawl Pass. I'm sure I also learned to read from having to learn the difference between the bags marked flour and sugar and the aluminum pans marked kerosene oil or coconut oil. I knew, however, that getting an education could take me further than the village. None of my father's educated relatives lived in the village. Some lived abroad, like my better off Makala relatives, and many lived in Kingston. They lived in nice houses with electricity and running water and had good jobs. I was beginning to learn that education was the way up the social ladder. It was hearing Louise Bennett's poetry, humorous stories, and proverbs recited in the language of the rural, uneducated Jamaicans that I grew up around that made me see them at a time when I was being taught in school to discount them. Despite any flaws in Jamaican folk culture, Bennett taught me that there was humor, knowledge, and most significantly, survival narratives to be found in it. The way to interpret those narratives for critical application was to listen to the people who spoke them. To listen actively meant you first had to respect them and see them as people who possessed knowledge, even wisdom. That knowledge was worth something, which meant, by deduction, that the people who spoke them were themselves valuable carriers of a unique culture, cosmology, language codes, and systems of interpretation, subjectivity, and empowerment. Bennett taught me these lessons indirectly by being visible, vocal, and larger than life. She made a career out of folk knowledge and the Patwa that carried it. In my childhood, she was a beloved celebrity, and later she became a national treasure. The language, folkways, and beliefs of the Jamaican people, which she altered to suit her message and style of delivery, later made Bennett internationally famous. I grew to associate her with the Jamaican folk, my own rural working class people. Years later, while writing a dissertation chapter on her work, I discovered that Bennett was not of the folk, as I had assumed. She was from the Jamaican middle class. Furthermore, in some of her work, she was clearly satirizing, parodying, and othering the folk, creating pathos from their folksy ways of being and speaking. But by then, the positive impact had already been made. The groundwork had been laid for a counter-narrative that resisted interpolation. I could critique Bennett as I critiqued the folk she corrected, celebrated, and laughed at, but I could not politicize or radicalize myself out of those covert, insidious, and subversive seeds of self-worth she was partly responsible for sowing. Worth for my language, for my people, for myself. When I passed Spanish at the PhD level, but was struggling with French in order to qualify for PhD candidacy at the University of California, Berkeley, I had a stroke of genius. I petitioned the Department of English to allow me to take one of my foreign language exams in Jamaican Patwa, since I was writing a whole dissertation chapter on Louise Bennett's work. Sociolinguist John McWhorter had recently been hired by Berkeley, and he came to us as an academic star of sorts. They consulted him, and he affirmed in writing that Jamaican Creole was indeed a foreign language. McWhorter wrote an exam for me in it, and in Jamaican Patwa, and of course I passed it. McWhorter also wrote a similar exam for my friend Valerie, who is not Jamaican. My recollection is that she passed it and was moved along to candidacy also. Bennett is far from being my only literary influence for the valuation of Jamaican Creole as a language to speak in, to write in, to dream in, to make love in, and to create dangerously and boldly in. But she was the first. For this subversive Anansiism of giving a little country girl a voice, for surreptitiously slipping me the weapons to combat shame, for granting me permission to speak in the only language that was mine to speak in, a language deemed illegitimate, not just by the external forces that directed my life, but by the authority figures around me whose sophistry I did not possess the tools to contest, for rescuing that language from bastardization and elevating it to be used in service to drama, to poetry, to fiction, to writing as resistance, to inscribing subjecthood and dignity. I give thanks to the cunning Jamaican woman, the Honorable Dr. Louise Bennett Coverley.
I hope you could hear from the back of the room. We are gathered here at the multifunction room at the UWI Library. Vivian Crawford saying, yes, 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 Dr. Donna. And by the way, you said that you didn't bother ask your son what I mean by love language. Clearly, you expose a young man to me darling love, me little dove, me dumpling, me gizzada, me sweetie Sue, I goes for you like how fly goes for sugar. What you mean you don't understand what I mean by love language? Eh? You must understand. As I put my pen paper, my pen nib start to fly. Me remembrance, remember the first day me get you, yai. You did just come off a tram car, a bus was to your right, a car sweeps past your left ears, and you turn up tiff with fright. Your jaw drop, your mouth open, just like when your car start yarn. My heart go boogie boogie, and me know it make me bad. Lord, do not scan me little letter, no laugh after me, yeah. Me learning not too grand. So what me can't spell? Come now, me withdraw. You know the thing in the corner with the freckles is me heart. And the plate with the yam and saltfish mean that we can never part. See how me draw the two face them that look upon one another. Well, one is me and one is take anyone you rather. It's not cockroach foot, this is a finger with a ring and it mean me want to marry you. The line is a piece of string. Take it tie around the wedding finger your wedding on. Careful to get the right size and then give it to this man. The man is me. Now, sweet rice, keep swell till I see you next. Accept me young heart while I close with love and bonds are X. I miss that. Love letter me I tell you. But you don't understand where she exposed the young man to the something. He turn it back pan her, he boomerang. And she no get it. Papa Jesus. All right, the young people know enough. You come in here now. I remember people like Dalia and Joan try to catch me up in her age, but they can't catch me up. But me remember when they were 30 years younger. And the impact Miss Lou made on them. There's a little lady I want to introduce you to now. She's 11. And the impact Miss Lou has made on her. Courtney Grieves, a.k.a. Little Miss Lou, is a Jamaican poet, philanthropist, and child rights advocate. 11 years old, and is a student of Jessery Paul Primary School. Let's welcome her.
Every Time I Am a Jamaican by Courtney Grieves. Every time me think about Louise, water come a me eye. Every time me think about Louise, water come a me eye. Maxie! Yes, Courtney. Them say me young, and me not know Miss Lou. But if she did there, she would have proud for call me Mini Miss Lou. She would have vexed for see how them try for style with nice bandana. Them call it this, them call it that. Them even call it tablecloth. But me, Courtney, glad when them call it that. Cause tablecloth a good sin thing. I bet them did I wear this. Then I wear certain clothes. So Miss Lou, don't worry. Just rest your good old soul and leave me, Courtney, for deal with all of them. Oh, come back, Louise, come back, girl. Water come a me eye. Come back, Louise, come back, girl. Me not tell you goodbye. Me can't tell you goodbye. I am a Jamaican, a proud one too. I wear the colors of my flag with pride. You should wear them too. The colors in my flag speak of who I am. Black is my strength. Green speaks of my hope. Gold is the sunlight in me.
The girl have a strong voice. Well strong. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming down to the final portions of the afternoon, but I'm certain you want to hear from Professor Opal Palmer Adisa. She's a diverse and multi-genre award-winning poet and writer of prose, literary critic, playwright, director, gender specialist, and cultural activist. She's a former university director of the Institute of Gender and Development Studies, Regional Coordinating Unit at the University of the West Indies, Mona, here in Jamaica. Professor Disa is editor-in-chief of the literary visual journal Interviewing the Caribbean and the scholarly journal Caribbean Conjunctures CSA Journal. She's a lady who took on this task to get this book up and running. While we do our little bit of protocol business here, just prepare to hear from her.
Thank you. Let me just say that I stand here in complete gratitude, and I'm so overwhelmed. And much of what I prepared, I'm not even sure I'm going to say it, because a lot of it have been said in so many ways. And one of the first things I had wanted to do, and I still want to do, although it is so evident that Miss Lou is in the house. And I wanted to call in her spirit, because if it weren't for Miss Lou, we all wouldn't be here today. And I also want to call in the spirit of my mother, Catherine Palmer, because she was the first one who introduced me to Miss Lou. And this book, Jamaican Language, which was signed in 1970, was a gift from my mother, because she said Miss Lou was such an important person and that I needed to keep her close when I was going away. So, you know, I have a lot written, but let me see how much of it I will actually read and how much of it I will not. I am very full, and I want to thank all of you who have gone before and all of the wonderful things you have said. I want to thank the contributors, some of whom are here in this room, because without them, this book wouldn't have happened. But let me just give you a little journey as to why this was important to me, and to talk about dreams and the way in which sometimes dreams take 30 years. So in 1987, I was accepted into the doctoral program at the University of California, Berkeley. And I decided that I wanted to do my dissertation doing a biography of Louise Bennett, because one of my main advisors, Margaret Wilkerson, had been doing a biography on Lorraine Hansberry, so she was pushing that. And I told her about Miss Lou and how much, and she thought, yeah, I should do that. And so Mervyn Morris, who has been a friend and a mentor, I was coming home and I called him and I said, you know, I wanted to interview Miss Lou. And so he arranged for that to happen. And I was driving my mother's car. It was a kind of an old car. And I met Miss Lou at the Oxford Pharmacy, and she said, then just follow her up to Gordon Town. And one of the things that I remember is that, you know, at first, to go up to Miss Lou's house, there's a steep graded, right? And I wasn't quite, you know, I was accustomed to driving an automatic in the US, and so coming back with my mother's gear shift, I was really struggling. And then Miss Lou she stopped, somebody was driving, and she said, just mash the gas, and come up the hill. And I mashed the gas and come up the hill. And that was the first interview that I did with Miss Lou. And, you know, of course, when you go to Miss Lou's house, you have to meet Mas Eric and everybody else who is there, and then she takes you into her bedroom. So one of the, you know, there are many things I want to say, but that was the first time meeting Miss Lou, and one of the things I wanted to ask her, and it's part of one of the excerpt of one of the interviews. I did 2 interviews with her. We talked a lot in 1987 about her leaving and what that meant and why. And then again, I came back in 88 and talked with her again. And that cassette, because then it was cassette, no cell phones, the library here has one of the cassettes, one of the other cassettes in my move from California to St. Croix to Jamaica. I don't know where that went. But what I want to say is that Miss Lou has always influenced me. My mother took us to pantomime. Anytime Miss Lou was on the radio, my mother made sure that we listened very quietly. And she also, as I said, gave me this Jamaican Language, which I've had since 1970. And she also, made me practice some of Miss Lou's poem. And Miss Lou has given me voice, right? And by that I mean that, like, who said it? I'm so confused now. Whoever said it on there that you couldn't, I went to Woolmer's and you couldn't speak the Jamaican language. You could get a detention, right? And so it was hearing Miss Lou's voice and me wanting to write that really gave me that sense of my language was okay. And one of my most anthologized poems, and my first chapbook is called Market Woman, and it was the first poem I written using Jamaican nation language. And so my tribute to Miss Lou, my honor to Miss Lou, is that she made it okay for me to speak my mother tongue. And she made it okay for all of us to speak our mother tongue and to understand that our mother tongue is good. Our mother thing is the language of passion and all of those things. So I wouldn't be here standing as a writer. In fact, I remember when my first short story book collection was being published in 1987. It was by a feminist press in Berkeley, and I had to fight tooth and nails because the characters were speaking Jamaican, and the editor, who was white, said this book was being published in the US, and nobody would understand the Jamaican language. And it was their first book that was reviewed favorably by the New York Times. So I always kind of say, yes, that happened. Backstory, 100 Voices. So I had wanted to do Miss Lou's biography, but I had one child, and in the middle of graduate school, I had another child, and doing a biography was, is a very long, time-consuming process. And so I felt I just had to do a dissertation and, write on Miss Lou and do a biography another time. And this is what I mean about a dream and how sometimes you have to be steadfast. This book, this book is my biography to Miss Lou 30 plus years later. And it is better than the biography I would have written because it includes all of these other voices that tell the story of Miss Lou. So big up to all of you contributors. I learned so much about Miss Lou as a result of doing this. And a biography of Miss Lou has to be a voices of the people. Now, it has been said already, but I want to say it again about this cover picture. Sometimes, we take our national heroes for granted. And Jamaicans are particularly adept at that. We want to see people like we think they are. Miss Lou was a warrior. She was a queen mother. And I have nothing against the bandana, but I want you to show her that she is a warrior. And this fountain pen, because that's what they were using, that's what I had to use when I was at Woolmer's, because Faye and I are closer than them little people out there. The age, that's what we're talking about, the age. And Miss Lou understood, and in the interview, one of the things she said to me is that if people ever know all of the things I went through, so we see Miss Lou laughing and we see her big, and we don't understand that she was a strategist. She was a strategist. She wasn't just playing and taking what we were doing. She understood that what we had as a culture was a gem. And that lots of us wouldn't understand it then because of colonialism, but she had it and she wanted to preserve it, and she was willing to sacrifice and to make, all of the strides she did in order for us to have our language. Miss Lou was not celebrated as a poet. Some of you might be thinking that now, but she was not celebrated as a poet. That came much later, after Mervyn Morris and other people started to do work on her. That's the legacy we're talking about. That's the legacy we're talking about. So these 100 voices has allowed me 30 odd years later to write a biography of Miss Lou that I think she would be proud of. You know? And as Faye has said and others have said, it was a very difficult process, and believe me, I had many sleepless nights just wondering, you know, am I selecting the right poems? You know, who else do I need? I want to thank Fabian, because when I started it and I said I wanted to flesh out the book, he really turned me on to some other people who are not familiar with and gave me contacts. You know, I had not anticipated doing 11 interviews, but people who I knew whose story of Miss Lou were so important needed to be included, and they didn't want to write. So I had to do those interviews, including P.J. Patterson's, that I had the wonderful opportunity to sit with. So, you know, I want to say all of that, but let me just start off by just doing some thanks, right? So when I was organizing the Centennial, which brought 4 departments at the University of the West Indies together under the auspices of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies Regional Coordinating Unit, a mouthful, that I was the university director. And so I invited people from the language and literature, people from the Philip Sherlock's, the library, and other departments, including Devonish, and we came together and we had this amazing celebration for Miss Lou at the Undercraft. And I remember saying to someone then, and I don't remember who said to me, I said, I wanted to do 100 voices for Miss Lou, and they said to me, Chuck, you'll never get a good 100 voices. Well, we got almost 200 voices, and many, many more poems, because many people submitted more than 1 poems. And so that was my agonizing in terms of trying to organize the anthology. And I want to thank Joseph Powell, who has died. But Joseph was the first official person I said to him, I wanted to do this anthology. He was then at UE Press, and he came to my office and we sat down, and Joseph is American, so I wasn't sure he knew about Louise Bennett, and I told him about her, and he had known a few things. And I said, you know, I think it's really important because of what she has contributed that we do this anthology. And he said yes. And so you know, coming back to Jamaica, there were so many things I wanted to do, many of which I've started to do. I just want to thank UE Press, and I want to thank Nadine Buckland, who has taken over and just made it happen. Because not only was it difficult for me in terms of, you know, organizing the voices, publishing a book, especially during COVID, is not an easy thing to do. And it's also a very costly thing to do. And so right here also I want to thank Chase, because I wrote to Chase and we got some funds for that. But the UE Press has been tremendous in producing this volume and now in promoting this volume. So I want to thank them. I want to thank the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, where I was, and the administrative team, particularly Kadeen Marshall, you know, people, I'm soliciting information from people from everywhere, and I need someone to manage that. And Kadeen was amazing in managing that. So big thanks to Kadeen Marshall, big thanks to Margaret Hunter, who transcribed all of the interviews that I did, you know? And so just big thanks to the Institute. Doing an anthology, which is not my first, is a really collective energy. I want to read, there are lots of favorite poems of Miss Lou, and I want to thank Sangsters and Carlong for permission to read this poem, Banza Woman, because one of the first questions I said to Miss Lou in the interview I did in '87 was whether or not she was a feminist. And Miss Lou says, no, I wouldn't call myself a feminist, but I was always concerned, and this is almost verbatim, I was always concerned about women's issue and women's place in the world. And 2 of my favorite poems from Miss Lou is Bands of Woman, not woman, Bands of Woman, and Jamaican Woman. And so this is Bands of Women, and it was written at the launch of the Jamaican Federation of Women for women of all classes. Bands of Woman, bands of woman pack the place from top to ground. Master Lord, me never know say so much woman their tongue. Up the step and down the passage, up the aisle and down the wall. Not a Sunday evening hope tram packed like St. George's Hall. The woman them turn up for hear how Federation go on. Me never see such different grade and kind of woman from me born. Full dress, half dress, tidy so-so, from beer eye to squeeze square cut glass, high and low, mingle, suspended, every different kind of class. Sometime them turn so quiet, you coulda hear eyelash drop. And when something oversweet them, Lord, you want hear woman clap. Me was a dead to go inside, but when me start to try, woman squeeze me, woman push me, woman frown and cut them yai. Me take me time and crawl out back. Me not make no alarm, but me practice bands of tactics till me catch up a platform. Is that time me see the woman them like variegated ants. Them face a bus with joy for say, at last we get a chance. If you ever hear them program, if you ever hear them plan, if you ever hear them sinting, woman gonna do to man. Federation bout to flourish, for them not bands of nice plan, and no them out. And now them got mid art, and now them got the heart and soul of true Jamaican woman. And Miss Lou, as so many have said, really has the heart of all Jamaicans, not just Jamaican men and women. And I'm so grateful, and it's so insightful of the reviews that were done, because they demonstrate one of the objectives I have is to ensure that people understand that Miss Lou was multifaceted, that Miss Lou was a strategist, that Miss Lou was an intellectual. And I think sometimes we forget that because we do this laugh and this big cuss of our poems and don't understand the intricacy and the various nuances that her poems demonstrate. I don't even know where I am in this thing, but let me just say, so lastly, I think what I want to say is that there is so much I would say and perhaps should say, but as I said in the beginning, my heart is full and I'm thankful, and I'm really thankful. I did not know what people were saying, and so to see it and to hear it is really gratifying. And so, I want to thank her for liberating the Jamaican nation language, for liberating our folklores that are packed with wisdom, and thank her for pantomime and Jamaicanizing it. Thank her for the Anansi stories and this long time gal me never see you, let me hold your hand, is a very good and wonderful thing to be, and to be in company of Miss Lou. And for me, the arrangement of the book, and which, when I wrote to Chase, I said, oh, it will be 225 pages. Now it's 400 and something pages. But I really wanted to create an anthology that would have a long life like Miss Lou, so it will be celebrated in the centennial. But also I wanted to have an anthology that would be a teaching tool at all levels, so both at the tertiary level, but it also is appropriate for high school and even some primary elementary school. So that was part of my objective. And the essay section, which Dalia so wonderfully delineated, was really important for people to begin to understand Miss Lou's scholarship, and that we understand that there is so much more about her that we need to study, that we really need to get into. And I'm exploring, our Auntie Rochi said, and why she had to create that alter ego in order to say some of the things she said. So there is just so much in Miss Lou to plumb. And because this has been long and I'm full, I just again want to thank everybody who participated, all of the contributors. I want to big up my dear friend and manager, Lorna Gordon, who when I was doing the celebration at the university, was the coordinator of that, and who has just been awesome in promoting this book and making sure that it gets out. Again, I want to thank, the IGDS and the university, and I want to thank Karen and Kaylee for really making this happen, and of course, Faye. And Miss Lou is being put forward as one of our national heroines or heroes, which, as far as I'm concerned, is, a given. And which is why when I initially had planned the centennial, I said it should be an annual festival, and COVID happened. Well, I'm here standing before you because I always do these, whatever I do, to say that we're working to do a regular annual Louise Bennett Festival, which will happen on her birthday or the Saturday after her birthday. And, Florida and Canada and several other places. I just came from Florida not too long ago, where I was invited to a Miss Lou Festival. So we are launching the annual Miss Lou Festival. So to those of you who want to join me in that effort, please contact me. You will know how to contact me. And then I also want to say, it's important that this book gets into the hands of people. And so for any of you out there, this is a sales pitch, and I am unapologetically making it. Any of you out there who can afford to buy a copy for a library, one of your parish libraries, one of your town libraries, one of your school libraries, I am urging you to do so, to gift a library a book, to gift a friend a book, both in Jamaica as well as internationally, because we really want to ensure that Miss Lou's legacy continues and is celebrated. So I just want to express my heartfelt thanks to all of you for this occasion, for Miss Lou and my mother, and to say, evening time. Work is over now, it's evening time. So thank you so very much.
For all these people who like to start a song but don't sing it, I don't know what it is. Evening time, work is over, now it's evening time. We da walk a mountain, da walk a mountain,
I walk a mountainside. Okay, so I'm back because I want to mention something. It's actually tonight. This book is being promoted by the Bocas List Festival. They're doing a special 4 days to change the world, and this book has been selected as one of the books to change the world. So big up Bocas, and it's going to be aired. They had me do a little presentation. It's going to be aired today at 7:45 at the BocasLitsFestival.com YouTube. So do look out to that, and the book is being celebrated, and I'm so happy.
Wonderful, congratulations. I'm glad I'm not the shortest in the room. Right. Just before we make the presentation of the books, I want to just read 2 or 3 comments from the YouTube channel. Patricia Reed War. In February 2007, when I lived in Nevis, I assisted the Nevis Public Library Service to mount an exhibition on Miss Lou and to also present a cultural program at the Cultural Center. It was great. So we understand that it's not only Grenada. It's not just St. Kitts and Nevis. It's not just Trinidad and Tobago, you know. This is, Ms. Cochran says, I'm loving the program and honored to be listening in. Miss Lou Bones must see her rockly in her grave with joy for hear our legacy still a go on. Lord, me love with culture. I'm full enjoying the program. That's a good thing I can read in something, yeah. And Mrs. Crawford teach me. Right. And you know, as I listened to you, and when you spoke about because I spoke with you about the design, just discussing it. Yes, she was a warrior, and that pen, we are looking at a war now going on in a place far away from us, but affecting us here. And this was her ammunition. This was her weaponry. you know, and you said that sometimes she had said to you, and to some of us, that you never know what she did go through. And when you said that, I just remembered a few Jamaican proverbs like water more than flour, water more than flour. And, you know, Jacques said they were on a level. Yes. And all of them swear for Kalalu, but Kalalu swear for run all of man belly. So she did have that one for them, you know. All of them swear for Kalalu, but Kalalu swear for run all of man belly. And Mr. Crawford, what she did organize, you know, she organized and put it this way. Monkey must know which part him I got put in tail before he order trousers. Monkey must know which part him I got put in tail before he order trousers. So she did well have it sort out. And those who never have it sort out have to find a place to put them tail. Right, we have the presentation of the books now. I believe our campus librarian had to go, and we're very sorry about that. But I'm laying hands on Mrs. Nadine Buckland, the acting manager of the University Press, to accept this book on her behalf, and Professor Opal Palmer Disa to make the, videographers, where would you like the presentation to be made? I don't think you want me in it. Let me get out of it as I announce each one. Do you want to speak? You want to say something? Okay, yes, I can stay over here. Wonderful. So this presentation is to the University of the West Indies Mona Campus Library. Mrs. Dr. Paulette Carr, campus librarian, was here, but she had to go, so I've laid hands on Mrs. Nadine Buckland, the acting manager of the University Press, and I know she's not going to take the book home. She's going to ensure that it is handed over. Thank you so much. Professor, don't move. Here's your second book. Now, the second presentation will be made to Miss Beverly Lashley. Miss Lashley is a National Librarian, National Library of Jamaica. Could you come on up, please?
Beverly loves to hide, and I love to bring her in.
You can't hide anymore. All right. Just so those of you who might be watching, masks were on for the presentations. We have doffed them, so they will be back on momentarily. Then the final presentation, for your book, you know. You know, say for your book. Miss Luda said, but what are something? All right, Miss Maureen Thompson, Director General of the Jamaica Library Service. Right, I invite you now to accept this book on behalf of the publishers and, of course, the editor of this publication. Everybody in the room, just put your hands together, please. I want to just remind you all that the books are available and will remain available at the University Bookshop, Mona Campus, Kingston Bookshop locations, Sangsa Bookstores locations, and Fontana Waterloo Square. May I go back to this one now? Right. And okay, so that takes care of that. Now, the book, between now and the 28th of May, the 31st of May, beg your pardon, you get the book at a reduced price. I think it's the $32.50 US, and the Jamaican is $5,037.50. I like to do things publicly when they really matter. And you said something just now, and you triggered something in me. Karen, could you just put out a book for me, not to present to me, but I will be buying it for the St. Hugh's High School Library, my alma mater. Yeah, it's important. You did that, and I figured I could just do it too. All right. Now, Mr. Crawford have some expressions like, uncle, when we used to go at JAS meeting with my mother as secretary, you know, you hear, oh yes, oh yes. And then when the people, when the organizer talk and me do it still, and now me catch up, me say, here, 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 when you agree with what them have to say. You get 35% off. This is a promo code. It was placed for you who are virtual. It was put in the chat, so look for it. You get 35% off, and that is 03ML22. 03ML22. This is valid from today through May 31. It's left now for me to just put the lid on things. What a wonderful occasion. What a really wonderful occasion. I want to thank Dennis Duncan and his team, Andrea and Louverture, for making this streaming happen so that people, wherever they are in the world, in Jamaica and outside of Jamaica, could participate and enjoy this wonderful book launch. The University Press is grateful to each person who made this event possible. Special thanks to former Prime Minister, the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson, for playing such an important role. Reviewers, Dr. Candia Mitchell-Hall and Miss Dalia Harris, my colleague. We can't wait, we said Dr. Dalia Harris. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Mercy. I'm gone in a poker mode right as long. Anyway, all the contributors to the book and those who shared on the launch. Professor Opal Palmer Adisa. Enough things has been said, but may I say more again. May I say more. And I would like to thank the members of the team of the University Press, Mrs. Buckland and your team, Karen, and every other member of the team. For me. And I'm seeing somebody who's, you are here from where? Oh, PBCJ is represented. Please tell Mr. Keith Campbell that I'm very impressed, because when I speak with Mr. Campbell, he says these are the things that the PBCJ, that's their reason for being, their raison d'etre. So thank you. What is your name, ma'am? Denita Rodney. Thank you so very much. Did you learn anything here today? Quite a lot. Yes, praise the Lord. And tell Mr. Keith Campbell, though, and your immediate supervisor and manager that this was very important to be covered. Yes. What you said, Lorna? Carla. Yes? Yeah, Carla Thomas Hughes from PBCJ and the other members. Is there, you're the photographer is here with you? The videographer is here. Thank you to the videographer as well. So University Press, this is a big thing. This is April 28, and it's a big thing gone down in history. When you see that Judith Wedderburn, they're here, and Mr. Crawford, they're here, and Lorna Gordon, they're here, and that little young man round here, they're here. Big something, this. They're here. Walk good, everybody. Thank you so much. And as Miss Lou would say, and may a good duppy walk with you. Remember, say, not duppy, you know, it means the ancestors, the spirit of the ancestors. May they lift us up on their shoulders and pull us up in the air on their wings so that we can soar the way Miss Lou did. Thank you. Thank you, my sister. May I say it up?